Prostitution in Zambia is a multifaceted issue deeply intertwined with the country's economic challenges, cultural norms, legal frameworks, and public health concerns. Despite being stigmatized and technically illegal, sex work persists in Zambia, providing a means of survival for many, particularly women, in a society grappling with high unemployment and widespread poverty. This video explores the history, causes, social implications, and potential solutions to the challenges surrounding prostitution in Zambia. The roots of prostitution in Zambia can be traced back to the colonial era. During this time, urban centers and mining towns became hubs of economic activity, attracting a significant number of migrant workers. The influx of male laborers created a demand for sex work, particularly in areas surrounding mining settlements. Women, often displaced from traditional communities and economic support systems, turned to prostitution as a means of survival. After Zambia gained independence in 1964, urbanization accelerated, bringing with it both opportunities and challenges. While cities like Lusaka, Ndola, and Kitwe grew, they also became hotspots for informal activities, including prostitution. The legacy of colonialism, combined with economic instability, laid the foundation for the sex work industry that continues today. Prostitution in Zambia is driven primarily by economic necessity. According to the World Bank, over 54% of Zambians live below the poverty line, with women disproportionately affected by unemployment and lack of access to education. For many, especially single mothers and young women, prostitution becomes a last resort to provide for themselves and their families. Urban centers, where economic disparities are most pronounced, serve as hubs for sex work. The informal nature of the industry means it is accessible to those with limited resources, though it often comes with significant risks. In Zambia, prostitution is illegal under the Penal Code, which criminalizes solicitation, living on the earnings of prostitution, and operating brothels. However, the law is inconsistently enforced, creating a gray area where sex work persists despite its illegality. Critics argue that the current legal framework disproportionately targets sex workers rather than addressing the root causes of the industry or holding clients accountable. Police harassment and corruption are common, with sex workers often facing abuse, extortion, and arbitrary arrests. Efforts to reform Zambia's laws on prostitution remain limited. Advocacy groups have called for decriminalization or legal reforms that prioritize the protection of sex workers' rights and safety, as seen in countries like New Zealand and parts of Europe. Prostitution in Zambia is closely linked to public health concerns, particularly the prevalence of HIV/AIDS. Zambia has one of the highest HIV rates in the world, with an estimated 11% of adults living with the virus, according to United Nations AIDS. Sex workers are especially vulnerable due to inconsistent condom use, limited access to healthcare, and the stigma surrounding their work. Non-governmental organizations, NGOs, play a critical role in providing health services to sex workers, including HIV testing, counseling, and distribution of condoms. Despite these efforts, many sex workers remain underserved, facing barriers such as discrimination and lack of trust in healthcare providers. Prostitution in Zambia is heavily stigmatized, shaped by religious and cultural norms. Christianity, the dominant religion in the country, views prostitution as immoral, while traditional beliefs often reinforce patriarchal attitudes that blame women for societal issues. This stigma not only marginalizes sex workers but also limits meaningful dialogue about their rights and welfare. Many sex workers hide their profession to avoid social ostracism, making it harder for them to access support or advocate for better conditions. While not all prostitution in Zambia involves exploitation, there is a significant overlap with human trafficking. Traffickers exploit vulnerable women and children, coercing them into sex work through deception or force. Zambia is both a source and transit country for human trafficking, according to the U.S. State Department's Trafficking in Persons report. Efforts to combat trafficking include increased border controls, public awareness campaigns, and partnerships with international organizations. However, the scale of the problem requires more robust enforcement and support for survivors. The rise of mobile technology and social media has transformed the landscape of prostitution in Zambia. Online platforms allow sex workers to connect with clients discreetly, reducing the risks associated with street-based work. However, this shift also introduces new challenges, including the potential for exploitation and lack of regulation in online spaces. NGOs and grassroots organizations are at the forefront of efforts to improve the lives of sex workers in Zambia. These groups provide essential services, including health services, free HIV testing, treatment, and education, legal aid, assistance for sex workers facing police harassment or legal issues, vocational training, programs that offer alternative income-generating opportunities. One notable example is the Tasintha program, which focuses on empowering women in prostitution by offering skills training and counseling to help them transition to other forms of employment. To address the complexities of prostitution in Zambia, a multifaceted approach is needed. 1. Economic empowerment, creating employment opportunities and improving access to education, particularly for women and girls, can reduce the economic pressures that drive many into prostitution. 2. Legal reform. Decriminalizing prostitution and focusing on harm reduction can help protect sex workers' rights and safety. Laws should shift from punitive measures to addressing systemic issues. 3. Public health initiatives. Expanding access to healthcare services, including HIV prevention and treatment, is essential for improving the well-being of sex workers. 4. Cultural change. Public awareness campaigns can challenge stereotypes and reduce stigma, fostering a more compassionate and understanding society. 5. Combating human trafficking. Strengthening enforcement against trafficking and supporting survivors can help address the exploitative side of the industry. Prostitution in Zambia is not merely a moral issue but a reflection of deeper economic and social challenges. Addressing it requires empathy, evidence-based policies, and a commitment to protecting the rights and dignity of those involved. While progress is being made through the efforts of NGOs and advocates, much remains to be done to ensure that all Zambians have access to safe and sustainable livelihoods. Thanks for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe.